Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker, and I'm your host. And the topic today of talking about being overcommitted is such an important topic because I feel like maybe I'm even there right now in being a little overcommitted for myself. So I'm excited to talk to Don Davis today about this topic. Let me just tell you a little bit about Don. He's an expert in operations leader in healthcare, life sciences, and he's got 35 years of experience in delivering and leverageable capabilities that scale their organizations while increasing revenue and controlling costs. So he's dialed in and focused. He's an author. He's an executive coach. He's a keynote speaker, and he's a consultant in the life sciences areas. And he's received an outstanding leadership award by Health 2.0 in 2022. So congratulations.
Thanks.
So without further ado, let's just invite Don and let's hear what he can do to help us with our overload, overcommitment, overstimulation. I'm just over it. So Don, welcome to the show.
What a great lead in. So thank you so much, Penny. I greatly appreciate it. And it's interesting to me to watch how many people actually are overcommitted. We start with a bit of a definition there, but also I wanted to just say for anybody that's listening as well, that taking a look at a few of the episodes that Penny has, and actually I think will tie in really well to some of the topics that we're going to touch on as well. So yeah,
Fantastic.
excited.
Well, I like what you said. Let's start with the definition because often we talk about these things that mean different things to different people. So let's do that. Let's start with what is your definition of overcommitted and then add my 2 cents.
It was so funny because as I was writing the book, so I took the Wikipedia version originally and put it in the book and then said, hey, I'm just going to refer back to Wikipedia. And my editor came back and said, but what is your definition? How would you define it? And it sent me kind of down this path of like really looking at each one of the words that were in the definition. Mm-hmm. And the way I define it is like this. There are 2 aspects of overcommitment. One aspect being the one that I think most people will go to, which is your calendar is stacked full of meetings. You can't seem to get from one clear thing to the next clear thing. And with all of this stacking that happens, you have to make a decision almost every day in terms of what thing do you go to and what thing do you sacrifice. And obviously on the sacrifice side, there's somebody that's paying for that, right? So the person that was expecting you to show up or whatever, and they're not getting you. So that's most of the definition that I took as well. There's one nuance that in the definition also where I decided that the secondary part is that do the things that you're doing lead you to the place that you want to go? So do your goals, your professional life, your personal life, etc., is that all tied together in a way that leads you to where you want to go? Because to me, it's not just the stacking. It's also, am I doing the things that proactively take me to the place that I want to wind up as well?
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. I always say that all tasks are not created equal. So why are we treating them equally, right? Because they're not. So if we look at the value that each one offers, it's going to make it easier for us to decide which ones stay and which ones go, right? At the end. But I want to add a nuance to overcommitted.
Okay.
Because we've made a choice to be overcommitted. It is a choice. And regardless of that, our schedules are overcommitted means we have accepted too many things to do for today or in general. And also, so I think that's an important aspect to discuss, right? Is that who's responsible for that, right? As if I'm going to point one finger at you, we're going to point 2 back at myself.
Right.
And I also think that people mistake, if we're going to relate overcommitted to also overloaded, that people mistake overwhelm and overload. I think there's also something to discuss there on that side as well. So what do you think about what I just said?
Yeah, so I deal with each one of these issues kind of separately inside of the book. So the way I sort of break it out is that the first thing that anybody that wants to get out of overcommitment needs to do is sort of understand the problem. And the reason why I wrote about it, what's funny is I'm like one of the most guilty people on the planet for being overcommitted in my earlier part of my career. I would say now I'm a lot more purposeful in the things that I take on. I'm also a lot more purposeful in holding my hand up and saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to have to do that. But at the same time, it's that living the life of the uncommitted versus the committed really is what's sort of guiding my decisions there. And also as a part of it, the secondary part is that, okay, so if you deal with your schedule today and you make sure that you've made clear decisions, one of the first exercises that we do in the book is you go through categorization. Categorization really is deciding of 4 categories in your life, you pick any 4. What are the four most important things in your life overall? Then rank them. Based on those, you develop goals. Then based on those goals, then the next part is to start making purposeful decisions about the things that are on your calendar and in your schedule versus the things that are not. And I would also admit, though, it's not always easy, right? I mean, we're all professionals and you have people throwing things at you all the time. And part of that is sort of thinking through, how am I going to handle these things as they come in as well?
Absolutely. I want to go back to, you said that you also over time, right, have decided that there are things that you don't want to commit to, or that you stop committing to, or realize that it's not what you want to be doing anymore. I've also said that, and I do that all the time. And I think it's so healthy that as you check in, let's say with those 4 categories, right, that you're talking about, that you say, are these tasks or these things that I've committed to, are they in line with those things that are most important to me? And if they're not, then I'm going to decommit.
Right.
Then I'm going to say, find a way to gracefully bow out or push it off to another time when it's more convenient, especially because it is not that high up on or find someone else who can do it, right? There's so many different ways to be creative. I find myself more creative when I give myself permission to say, okay, this isn't for me anymore. Doesn't mean I don't care about that person or that thing, but if it is a person on the other side, I'm going to help them find a solution. It's just not going to be me.
Right. Yeah. So let me go back to 2 things that you said. So the first portion that I would sort of focus in on is that in the book, I described this idea of having an overcommitment dare. And the dare is an acronym for delegate, automate, reschedule, or eliminate. It's one of those four things that don't fit the categories inside of your life. So my 4 categories are: my personal life is number 1. So in my personal life, I include things like family time and the time to make sure that I connect with people that are personally important to me, et cetera. Professional life is also important to me. I mean, writing a book and spending time doing the things that I do as a consultant is very important to me. I really enjoy what I do. Number 3 on my list is my fitness goals. So I have a gym that's about 100 feet behind my house. It doesn't take me that long to get there. But during the pandemic, I was one of those guilty people that I got in this habit of not going to the gym. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to use some of these ideas of goals and things like that. And I will every day put my gym clothes on. I will every day go at least to the front door of the gym. I can make the decision to go in or come back home from there, but I have to go to the front door is my main goal there. And then financials, my last one as well.
So those are really high chunk categories.
Yes.
Right. And so it's easy to say that, but they're really high chunk. And so there may be several goals or several pieces under professional or under financial, or so how do you account for that?
Yeah, so I try and provide some examples in the book in terms of ways that people could break it down for themselves, right? So the sort of high level categories lead you then to the goals that you're going to set under those categories that will show whether or not if you're doing the thing that you need to do to support that. The secondary part is that you then break it down even further into smaller tasks that lead you either closer to the things that you want or not. And then I also stated in the book as well that, look, if you're consistently not doing something, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. You just need to reevaluate. Is this thing important or is it not? You're making a choice on a routine basis. Is it important to you or not? You need to decide that, as well. And if it's not, let's not feel guilty about it. Let's reevaluate it and figure out how to make it work in our life.
I think one of those things is that reserved time on the calendar, let's say for the workout or whatever it is that keeps getting pushed.
Yes.
Right. So get it off your calendar. It just makes you feel bad and it has no value anymore. And then it maybe even makes you feel like you're not consistent because it's there and you're not doing it. So commit to the things you're willing to follow through with. Right. And then those are the things that go in your calendar. If you're not 100% certain and you haven't 100% decided it's important to you, then don't put it in your calendar.
Right. And I'm a big believer in two things, right? So I strongly believe in time blocking. I think that the chunks that you mentioned kind of relate to that, this idea of sort of segmenting your calendar into, I want to start every morning with journaling, or I want to start every morning meditating or whatever. But also, to your point, if you're routinely not doing it, reevaluate whether or not if you need to do it. The one example, and I'll pull this up off my desk here, so at least you can see it on Zoom. So I have this calendar that's couched to marathon. I actually have had different problems with my knees where I just cannot seem to get past a certain distance. And so the other day I was running and my knee started hurting again. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to finish this program. I'm going to have to change. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm not going to just sort of judge myself for not being able to do it anymore. But it's just the way life is. Sometimes you have to reevaluate and adjust.
Right. You're adapting. What I like to do with those blocks is not necessarily assign exactly so that it's going to be meditation, or is that it's a block for well-being.
It's a good idea.
Then you have more flexibility, right? Yes. And you know that X percentage of your time, or this is going to be dedicated. And maybe one day the best thing for your well-being is sleep in, and that's okay. Right. And maybe one thing for your well-being is to listen to a podcast on something that's important to you, or so it can vary, right, from day to day. And there can be some things that you say, okay, I'm going to do this on a daily basis. But I find if you feel like it's slipping, right, don't let the category slip. It's okay to say, I need a break from doing this, but it's got to be something in your well-being. And it's the same thing for if you're connecting with clients, right? You don't have to write down all the clients that you're going to connect with. It's high chunking, right? Is I'm going to spend this block of time prospecting, and then you'll decide in the beginning of that session who exactly you're going to call and who's going to make sense to have on your agenda.
I completely agree with that. I think that's a really smart choice as well. One of the other things that I described with regards to your calendar is that all calendars have this ability to color code things inside of your calendar as well. What I recommend to people is that you color code the things that are in there that contribute to the categories that you've chosen. So that way, at least whenever you step back and look at your calendar, you can see the things that you're doing that are contributing to things. You can also see very clearly which things kind of fall outside of those categories that maybe you still have in your life. Because, to be honest, things like paying the bills, I have a financial one, but paying the bills really isn't very high on my list of get excited about go out and do tasks. So,
right, but you better do it. Otherwise, you're going to have other problems.
That's right.
So, Don, what's your definition of productivity and why?
Yeah. So my definition of productivity is really having efficient things that you do that are stripped of things that make you, I would say, less efficient or less productive. And I can give maybe just a quick example. One of the things that I'm a strong believer in is having things in your life that enable you to do things. The workstation that I'm sitting in front of for the interview has two monitors, a good example. I feel like two monitors make me extremely productive. Now, if I use that other monitor as a television and let it distract me or whatever, I could
leave your email open with it.
Right. I could make it less productive. So I think these tools can remove the sort of waste in the overall process of things that we have to do on a daily basis.
Right. Okay. Awesome. I've been thinking, just coming back to the word and the topic of overcommitted. I introduced and said, we have a real problem. We're not just overcommitted, we're overstimulated, we're overloaded, we're overscheduled, right? We're over meetinged, like all these things. I'm starting to wonder, right? There's all this talk about productivity and focus on productivity and being more productive. And in many of the ways that many people define it, we define it in a way that is about being efficient and effective type of thing, right? So
Right.
Not about spending more time doing more things, but it seems like that this obsession with time that we have, and that it turns out that this focus on productivity is making us more time oriented, making us do more, feel like we have to be more. And I think that productivity isn't the point, and it's creating that overcommitment. What do you think?
So one of the examples I use actually in the book is my daughter. So my daughter's in the Marine Corps. She has 3 boys, was going to school, and also has a husband who's an officer as well in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are very busy people and oftentimes find themselves overcommitted. And the pandemic, I felt like, really contributed to this as well, because you sort of all of a sudden had this virtual environment where people thought, hey, look, I can block every single chunk of every single day.
That's interesting. You think it made it worse?
Yes. As a consultant with clients, I mean, it was funny because there were clients that I actually booked half-hour meetings with during the pandemic. And I've sort of slowed this down now because a lot of the clients that I have are returning to the office and things like that. But I remember going to one of the meetings and just saying to one of my key stakeholders, hey, look, I just booked this 30 minutes for you to think about our next meeting that's coming up in 30 minutes. I don't want you for anything. All I want you to do is sort of spend time like thinking through things. And as humans, if you truly booked all of your day without time to think about things, you're honestly leaving stuff behind and you're not contributing the way that you possibly could be as well. And so I agree with you. I mean, I think this idea of sort of let's use every minute of every day, that's what makes us productive. No, actually, I think it's use the minutes effectively and try and remove things that are friction for you to use things effectively, and try and make the world the most productive in that sense, rather than trying to like jam every minute every day.
Right. So, because a lot of people think of time blocking as, wow, then I can fit in every single book it up to every 30 minutes, like you said, every block. That's not the point. The point is to block the things that are most important, but you still need space. You need space for the unexpected, right? Because it does happen. And there are things that come up that are urgent that you need to take care of. And you need to have space to think and to breathe and to pause.
Eat, drink. Yes.
Right. And drink. Right. Here, I'm going to have some right now. Good stuff. So what do you think is the most important thing that people need to address that you bring in your book? Maybe we've already covered it, but if there's anything, did we miss anything, like one of those most key points that we didn't cover yet?
So I'll touch on a couple of things that I did sort of in the writing of the book. I started to think about this idea of, one, if I'm somebody that's overcommitted, the book's 150, 160 pages or so long. And so it's a decent read anyway.
Commitment just to read the book.
So you're going to have to somewhat segment time. I took the beginning part of the book mostly to talk about a lot of my overcommitments throughout life, a lot of the things that I've done. And then in the second half of the book, I more or less really get, deeper into this. So if you wanted to know the why you should consider this and how honestly bad it could get, I give you some of my own personal examples in the book. Then the secondary thing that I also started thinking about was I wanted to make it simple for anybody that read the book to follow the steps that are in there. And so I came up with this concept of a 5-day overcommitment cleanse. And so you go through the steps of DARE, the sort of delegate, reschedule, and eliminate inside of the 5-day cleanse, but you also are asked to take a look at your categories and set goals and things like that as a part of it as well. So I think it comes out a little bit more than 5 days, to be honest. But the reality is to set you on a path where you've got this stuff well underway. And in 5 days, you've gotten kind of the meat of what you should have walked away with from the book as well.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. So out of all of those challenges that you had of your own personal overcommitments, what's the biggest lesson that you learned?
Well, the initial sort of thing for me was, for years and years in my career, I was fighting to be a senior executive in a large corporation with a corner office. That was the most important thing to me overall. And the closer I got to being there, the more I looked at people that were in those positions, and I would say to myself, this is not exactly what I want in my career. I wonder if I could do it differently whenever I get there. And the closer I got again, I discovered that no, you have to kind of fit a certain mold to more or less be in a lot of the larger corporations that are out there to be a senior executive. So I decided to plot my own path outside of that. And so I work with startups as a consultant. I work with companies that are brand new. And then I also work with companies that are fully funded and kind of on their path, and I work through a myriad of things to help support their overall growth. And to me, that fulfills that same sort of career purpose. And so the decision that I made along the way, based on sort of my own overcommitments, was, look, I don't want to be overcommitted in a way that leads me to a place that I don't want to be in the first place. So why would I spend all that time and sacrifice my family and sacrifice other things to get there?
So it helped you to learn what was really most important to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. So how can people reach out to you and get more information from you?
Yeah, the easiest ways I would give anybody. So number one is going to be my website. So it's www.drdavisphd.com. So that's where you'll see the book, and you'll see reference to the overcommitment cleanse and things like that there. There's a link there, and then send me an email and I'll be happy to respond. The second way is look for me on LinkedIn. But with such a common name, again, unless you can sort of see my picture on the book or somewhere else, it may be a little challenging to find me amongst the other Don Davises.
We'll have all the links on the show notes. So people who are listening, you can go to those links to connect with Don.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thanks, Don. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciated our conversation.
My pleasure. And thank you all for being here, because you took this commitment of time to listen to this and to see, what are you doing that you could be doing differently and get out of this maybe pattern of overcommitment. And so I just want to say, to close out today's show, is that ask yourself, what are you overcommitting for, right? Sometimes we're overcommitting because we feel this need to please other people. So we say yes, even when the answer shouldn't be yes, or needing to be perfect. So get it all done and do it all yourself. Well, that doesn't work either. And maybe it's just this high pressure need to achieve, to prove yourself. And all of those are traps, right? So if you find yourself in that overcommitment, get some clarity as to what's going on underneath, because even though you might have gained some good ideas here in this show, sometimes emotionally we know what to do, but we don't do what we know because our emotions keep us from making those changes. So dig into the why a little bit. What is it that you think that you're accomplishing? What excuses are you making? Like, look into those types of things to really understand what's behind the overcommitment, so that you can let go of some of those things. Give yourself permission to say no, permission to delegate. What was this?
Reschedule,
reassign, and to eliminate what doesn't really fit. So thank you again for all being here, for putting some thought into it. Why don't you reserve yourself 10 minutes at the beginning of every day and 10 minutes at the end of every day, so that you can think about what your commitments should be, need to be, and where you want them to be. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.